going on, JEROME? So I'm in an ultra good mood because as of recording right meow, UConn just beat the piss out of Purdue, which I'm kind of happy to see. Now Dan Hurley, he just doesn't seem like a tool or a toolbox. He's the whole tool shed. Obviously, he's very good at his job. So congrats to UConn for winning 2 in a row. Also saving us from Zach Edey storylines. Now it takes a lot. I feel like I don't really hold grudges against athletes unless they play for the Greasy Grimy Green Bay Packers, but I just don't like the fouls and the calls that Edey gets all the time, and obviously it won't translate to the NBA. And also, it takes a lot for me to cheer against an Asian basketball player, but here we are. Don't know, man. Also, cheering against the stupid solar eclipse. So everyone and their mom yesterday had all these cool pics of solar eclipses, but here in the great state of Minnesota, A, it was overcast, cloudy. B, it wasn't going to be very good here anyway, but I feel like that just kind of sums things up here in Minnesota, but it sort of is what it is. Also diving on in, so ESPN did an article doing the pro comps for some draft prospects. Now, I like pro comps because, you know, my feeble amateur scouting mind, it does better when I'm able to think of someone from the past. I was like, oh, it's kind of like him. But JJ McCarthy to Kirk Cousins, I don't know, man. But all right, so here's what Dan Orlovsky, he of the 11-yard end zones, wrote. McCarthy and Cousins play with a high level of conviction and routinely make difficult throws with the pocket look easier than they should. The former Michigan quarterback had his eyes and arms tied to his feet and when and where to throw the ball. Well, I think McCarthy is definitely much more of a plus athlete than Kirk. I think that Kirk's probably got a stronger arm. I think they both do very well with play action. I think Kirk off of play action is very underrated. And I don't know, like other than that, they play within a system. They don't really McCarthy, I think, improvises a lot better than Kurt ever did, so who knows. But I think that in terms of a system quarterback for Kevin O'Connell, I mean, Kurt obviously fit in extremely well, played the best ball of his career over the last 2 seasons. And McCarthy, I think, would fit in very nicely. And then, of course, they did the whole Bo Nix and Drew Brees thing. I don't get it other than they're both 6 feet tall. Like, I don't. Like, I mean, forget, like, Drew Brees and his shoulder was wrecked after San Diego. But, I mean, Drew Brees in college for Purdue, jumping Joe Tiller, I mean, putting up insane numbers. Now, you could say, well, yeah, Bo Nix put up insane numbers too. But, like, Drew Brees was going vertical. I mean, that was air raid, just really spreading things out and really getting after things. It wasn't just the dink and dunk and the tunnel screens. Like Drew Brees, I mean, Drew Brees from Texas, man. Like Drew Brees slang that damn ball all over the place, man. So there you go. Next up. Oh, so McCarthy and Kirko. I mean, come on. All of those chains are busting. I hate everything. Oh, also, Wyatt Davis in the foreground. Come on. Work out one time, man. Why couldn't Wyatt Davis have worked out and he be the long-term solution for the Vikings at guard? We wouldn't have an issue. Rick Spielman might still be GM. Who knows, man? Next. So Bill Barnwell, ESPN, pontificating about what the Vikings going to do at 11. Barnwell, I wouldn't be surprised if the Vikings have some semblance of a trade up of the board already in place. And yeah, I mean, that's something that we've been speculating for a long time now, and I think everything is contingent on what happens on draft night, because I think it's unlikely the Vikings trade up before the draft at this point. I thought that maybe it could have been on the table if it was specifically for 2 or 3, but if the Vikings trade up to 4 or 5, they may not get their guy, and if it's 5, they may miss out altogether, right? So I do think that there are like flow chart contingency plans, if this, then that sort of situation where say that the Patriots are really in on Daniels, but he goes 2, so then they could be open for business. Or say that Arizona, say something weird happens, like say the Patriots stick and pick and take Harrison Jr. That would definitely throw a wrench in things. Or McCarthy goes to the commies. That could certainly complicate things. So, I think Barnwell's right. I mean, there's obviously scenarios and contingency plans put in place, and it wouldn't be shocked if Kwesi has one for every single pick in the top 5. Well, -1. But you know what I mean. Yesterday was a big day for the Vikings as they did the bulk of their top 30 visits. And some marquee names, some first-round guys. Dallas Turner, edge rusher from Alabama. Byron Murphy II, defensive tackle from Texas. As well as Quinion Mitchell, the pride of Toledo. I absolutely love it, man. So the Vikings doing their diligence, not only of the quarterbacks, which they met with McCarthy, May, Penix and Nix in private workouts, but also checking the boxes on some of the top guys in the first round defensively if they go in a different direction and they do indeed stick and pick. And also Murph checking things out, checking out the facility. Maybe they made a trek over to US Bank Stadium. Who knows, man? And I think these top 30 visits are good because not only do teams do work on first round picks, but we'll bring up the list of reported 30 visits so far, but it's a strata, right? So first round guys, day 2 guys, even though the Vikings don't have a day 2 pick, as well as fringe guys that could be UDFAs. So just kickstarting the diligence on them, and also bring guys in the facility and doing the hard sells. Like, hey, you should come here. We got great facilities, got a great team, and also you could find a spot here on the 90-man and work up from there. I think it's a good selling point for the UDFAs, but I think Murphy II would be really good in purple, man. Like, we're talking about like a, not as stout as Kevin Williams, but probably quicker than Kevin Williams. We'll take that, and maybe won't even miss a draft pick. Who knows, man? But speaking of the draft, so Purple Persuasion put this together. Per PA on the mic on K-Fan, Paul Allen, 9 to noon. Vikings fans are going to be toxic if the team doesn't trade up for a quarterback. 2 weeks from Thursday, if they don't trade up for a quarterback and leave that draft with a quarterback, the fan base will be toxic, about the only way to put it. And I think that's fair, but also we're at like maximum level of toxicity, so why does it matter? I mean, I feel like the Jeromes are cool. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased, but I feel like in terms of the discourse, I feel like Vikings fans are basically like every other fan base. Like, it's a bell curve. Like, there's some hardcores and there's some detractors, and there's people who are always positive, us, people who are always negative, other people, and everywhere in between. And there's never one fan base that is in lockstep, synced up. It's impossible, man. Unless you're the Chargers, because they have like 3 fans, and I feel like they probably get together for coffee once a week, and they're like, "Hey, what do we feel like today?" So I think that Chargers fan are monolith, but with the Vikings, I mean, we're never going to agree on anything. Whether it's Adrian Peterson or Teddy or obviously Kurt. I mean, fan base is always going to be divided, and it doesn't even matter who they trade up and go get. Whether it's May, Daniels, McCarthy, whoever. Oh, I didn't like him. I want the other guy, or I don't want this guy, or why they take Penix, or why they trade up, or blah blah blah. It doesn't matter. I mean, we're going to be toxic for life, and that's okay. That's okay, man. We wear that as a badge of honor. Speaking of a badge of honor, so TJ Hawkinson swelling up her pride because of Iowa women's basketball getting things done. Came up a little bit short in the national title game, but it is what it is. I mean, 2 natty appearances in the last 2 years is very damn impressive, but they just ran into a buzzsaw with South Carolina. Happens, man. But Caitlin Clark is indeed the GOAT. And a lot of tweets and memes have been going out that Caitlin Clark basically outscoring Iowa football during her time in Iowa City. And, of course, bussing with the boys. Again, hate that word because we're just old. But I feel, isn't it more like a pun as opposed to like bussing? This show is bussing, but aren't they on a bus? Or am I just completely out of touch or shut up, boomer. Anyways, but so Taylor Lewan, Michigan alum, as well as Will Compton. Tom Compton is the pride of Rosemont, but Will Compton, who's hilarious, by the way. Love me some Will Compton, Nebraska alum. So yeah, he's like, hey, don't show this to George Kittle. And of course, Iowa's tight end so Hawkinson saw this and just decided to anyway, started blasting. Nebraska football, 1,003 points versus Iowa football's 1,028, which is kind of a weird flex. It's like, hey, I'm the tallest guy on the South Korean basketball team. Cool, you're like 5'9". But yeah, Will Compton, don't at my guy. So I love the Hawkinson out here doing some great rehab, as well as just completely just burning Will Compton to the ground. It's fantastic. By the way, That's rough. I mean, Iowa offense is just like notoriously bad, but you forget how down bad Nebraska has been forever. Is it weird that Nebraska used to be an absolute juggernaut in college football? Like every single high-level recruit from across the country would go to Lincoln, Nebraska and play in like the wishbone offense. Like what the heck? I mean, they got Irving Fryer to go to Lincoln, and he ended up being the number 1 overall pick. Like, you understand, like, running backs and offensive linemen, but I guess it was TV because, I mean, Nebraska would play on national TV like 6-7 times a year, and that was a big deal. It's like, hey, they're on CBS because we only get 4 channels. Great. Notre Dame was on the other one. Anyways, so speaking of the quarterbacks, so great Anthony Edwards meme, but so I know that I've sort of vacillated. It sort of depends on which day I wake up, and I feel like that's fine. I feel like a lot of fans aren't just completely cemented, like, this is how I feel, blah, blah. But I think it speaks volumes to the caliber of this quarterback class, where some mornings I'll wake up and say, hey, F it. Let's trade up everything for Drake May or Jaden Daniels or even McCarthy. Or some days I'm just like, you know what? We have a lot of great draft capital, and this is a deep class, and Michael Penix Jr. has probably the most upside in terms of arm talent in this class. If he can stay healthy, let's go. Let's just take him at 11 and just see what happens, right? So, but yesterday I was just like, I just don't want to give up that 2025 first-round pick because, I think the Vikings will be fine. I think the Vikings are going to surprise a lot of people. Yes, they'll be a young team, but offensively, whether it's Darnold or rookie, quarterback TBD, I think that with all those weapons, as well as playing indoors with Kevin O'Connell, I think that they're set up for success, right? And defensively, I think Flores' unit may be one of the best in the league. I ain't gonna lie. But just in case, like the injury, knocking on all the wood, injuries / alien abductions crop up, or things just go wonky with a very young team, I don't want to pull a Panthers where that 2025 first is very valuable. So, don't want to do that. Something I don't want to do is say goodbye to a friend. But the business is the business. KJ Osborne was not re-signed here in Minnesota. Signed a 1-year, $4 million deal with the Patriots, and he'll do good things in New England, and catching balls from Jabroni Brisket or rookie quarterback TBD if they stick and pick. But he had a great goodbye on the old social medias. A dream come true. Thank you, Minnesota. And KJ was a guy who's always very easy to root for. I loved his mentality. He just really got after things and just was always persistent, never gave up. Always remember his performance in the Colts comeback game. Like, he was the one who jump-started things. He had a career game against Indy. KJ is one of my favorite players just because, I don't know, just because mentality. Like, the kid faced some tough times, like being benched several times as a rookie, as a returner, didn't play any offense, but got into the mix, got things done. And, could he have made more of his opportunity last year with Jefferson injured? Yeah. I mean, it is what it is, but he's going to get after things again. And I love me some KJ Osborne. He's fantastic. Going to root for him in New England, and hopefully he gets things done there. Also, the better he does, the better the commensurate pick could be, because in-season numbers do factor into that proprietary formula. Who knows, man? But that is it. That is the Vikings news dump for this beautiful Tuesday. You guys are the best. You know what to do. Skull production value.